copy. So when, in like any of the city ordinances, that way, and it's a live signature, like, but you know, I could print, I
Maybe
could.
we ought to do that.
Because, like I said, any documents I get are actually signed
Right,
documents.
right,
So, yeah.
good, okay, super. Have we heard from Max?
I know he's coming. I talked,
Okay,
I mean,
okay.
I texted with him the other yeah, they're just gonna, I'm after reprint that poll worker notice for me.
Oh,
real quick,
okay.
So we can do the other things first.
Okay, super. Well, we will call this meeting to order. The first item of business are 2 sets of minutes. Have you had a chance to look them over, guys?
I have.
Yeah. Yeah, they're fine.
Okay, we are going to accept those as presented, and we'll discuss an item of business with that later. Next item is March the 5th, preferential primary. Jennifer, what you got?
All right, so I'm gonna skip the poll worker notice and come back
Oh,
to that
okay.
since she is printing that. The next one is logic and accuracy. So this is the testing of all of the equipment. So we have completed that and everything worked exactly the way we thought it would work. The testing also does include, they were able to finish it up last week, where we test the poll books to make sure that the barcode issued from the poll book actually pulls up the correct ballot into the express vote. So that all has been thoroughly tested. We've tested the printed paper ballots for absentees to make sure that those count correctly. And then we have voted a ballot for every candidate, for every precinct to make sure that everything counts correctly. So what you have is just a condensed version of it because I have 5 boxes of just ballots and reports that we've run. And then we have saved, basically whenever we do so for instance, like this is Oak Grove, whenever we test it in its machine, we print out one for each single polling place and then for early vote and then all the other testing. And we have all of those PDFs saved, all of those reports saved. But this is the 0, which we're required to provide. And then this is one where we ran in all of the 6 together to give a complete number. So it would just need, we'll have to get the clerk and myself and then Debbie, and then, but it will need a commissioner signature on it. So, but yeah, if you wanted to take a look at this, this is the part of one of 42, one of 60, actually. So, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
That took a while, didn't it?
it took us almost a week for us to print because there's 9 presidential candidates. So we go through and make that test deck for one for all 9, and then there's 6 6 Democratic candidates. So we go through and do those. And then they test every single machine over there to make sure that it is loaded and prints out the proper ballots. Then once we got all that completed, then we get in the poll book data that gives us a name or 2 or 3 names for every single, I'll put that in here too. So basically, it prints out, it prints out, we print out a list of voters in every single precinct. And then we go through and pull that voter up and vote out a ballot and make sure that that ballot pulls up the correct precinct. And we have to do that for them for a nonpartisan, a Democratic and Republican one. So, yeah, so it does take quite a bit of time to do all of that, but we have it all completed. Yes,
Cool.
That's great. Good work.
234 precincts.
So there's 234 precincts, but then when you add the splits
Oh,
inside,
yeah.
there's 326 actual ballots that we created. Because the splits are created in there for the school districts. And hopefully we'll see what happens next year. We wanted to go 1-to-1, but with the possibility of school districts maybe getting rid of their zones, it seemed kind of,
Yeah.
it would be double work for us, so we'll wait. When we do the general election, we don't have to build in the school splits because they're not on the ballot. So it gave us some more breathing room to actually make a plan for how we want to approach that.
Got it.
Yeah, I guess, a good thing about that is anticipating that there will be some changes
Mhm.
and, thinking through some of those.
So the school boards can make that decision now. But they haven't yet, or they will next year.
They haven't yet. We've heard from some school districts that are possibly interested in doing it because it's difficult. It's
To find
easier
people
in the
some of
zone.
Small towns.
yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
got it.
so,
And if I assume it's the school board has to vote for that change.
yeah. Cause like if you look at Elkins precinct 1 has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 slips in it
Yeah,
because it's got
so that's a lot for.
for
the
one
Town
precinct.
the size of
Mhm.
Elkins to find 5 people who want to serve each of those
Yeah.
areas, I get it.
Yeah.
That speed would be tough, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. So I mean, they could choose 1 year to do it and then you could get a new school board and they could choose to go back at some point, right?
Possibly.
Possibly.
I doubt that they will because they're still gonna have the same issue
Yeah.
that they had previously.
Yeah, got it.
A lot of stuff.
Sure.
I mean.
Yeah.
obviously, look over it.
I will. You can
Sure.
move on if you want.
We appreciate your good work there, ladies. Well, this is probably other businesses will go ahead and go on with the poll worker
Okay.
notice.
All right, so, on the poll worker notice, this of course is the name of all of the people who are eligible to work. There are 2 names, for the commission just to be aware of. One, Jim's wife has been through training and signed up to be a poll worker. She is an individual that someone could make an objection to. But
I thought it was just for the
Candidates.
candidates.
Yeah.
I think it talks about, and maybe I'm wrong, but I could have sworn it said commissioners.
Maybe it does. I always thought it was candidates.
But regardless, if you approve to have her name on here, then if there's an
Somebody's
objection,
gonna
I
have
will,
to object.
yes,
Yeah, yeah.
and I will double check that,
Okay.
but I don't know if it, I think it's,
Yeah,
I think
and
it's
they
somebody that
may have added commissioners, I don't.
Yeah, that's true. They didn't make
So-
some changes.
Yeah, to some of the commissioner stuff, yeah.
And the other one is we do have a poll worker who is the mother of a candidate who is unopposed. And so I have included her on the list, for the commission to leave her name on there. She is unopposed.
Those are both fine.
So if the commission,
We don't
if
care
someone,
about-
Yeah, I mean, the key thing is if somebody objects.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
and how, I mean, we've had a few objections through the years.
we've only had one true
One or
objection,
two.
but it wasn't based on something you could make an objection
Right.
on.
That's right, I remember.
Yeah, so it didn't even matter. Her last name is also not the last name of the candidate.
I was gonna ask you that, yeah.
So,
You'd have to be real close to those people to
Yeah.
actually be aware.
yeah,
Okay.
so, but other than that, this is the poll worker notice.
I'm sure not.
You'd be in trouble if you did.
Yeah, that would be not good at all.
That would be anything.
I'm sure B doesn't need all that bad press you give her.
She works out with that Tawny Town crew,
Yeah,
so they've got a really good crew out there. They're gonna run our early vote site at the Springdale Library and then our early vote site at the
Oh.
Civic Center.
okay,
So,
good.
because they're opposite weeks.
Right.
And Susan and Donna are just great supervisors, so that just makes it really easy, for us to just give that to them and then that's they do it. So, yeah,
We need signatures.
yes. And then we take it up for Becky as well, because Becky's staff is included.
Oh, that's
On
right,
there.
yeah.
While they won't be conducting, early vote in her office, they do, other things.
Okay.
So,
Super. A lot of people.
Bruce.
They all came through last week. So
Well, and the weather
the
cooperated.
weather cooperated, which was wonderful, which made it really nice because the supervisor week we did their training, it didn't cooperate, but those are smaller classes to begin with. So when we combined them, it wasn't difficult for us to do that. But fortunately, the weather cooperated for us. Springdale High School and Don Tyson School of Innovation came. Fayetteville High School, I am going to the high school on the 13th, which means they don't get to do the fun part
Yeah.
of, participating and voting ballots and we let them vote, like when the high schools came, they all voted and then we released the results, like we went
Yeah,
through
yeah,
and we
sounds fun.
tabulated it all and released the results and everything. So the Fayetteville kids won't get to do that, but I will do one again in September
Oh, good.
and make a big effort to get the other high schools signed up. I put it out to the other high schools and didn't get a lot of feedback, but with the primary, it's, like school just starts and then it's like trying to coordinate that. So we'll make a coordinated effort to get some of the other school districts definitely signed up. Because right now we might have more students and poll workers, then you have a big flux of voters on election day. So, yeah.
How many students did you get trained for those two?
So, the Springdale High School and Don Tyson had probably 70 kids there.
Wow, that's great. Who-
yeah.
these are-
What grades are they?
They're 11th and 12th grade.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
these are students who want to work as poll workers on
Yep.
election day.
They do.
Or early vote, is it both? Is it
They
just
can
one?
do early vote. It's easier for me to coordinate them through election day because we assign them in teams of 2. And then they work a half day and I work with the school districts to not try and have so many students at each location. So it makes it easier to coordinate that. But yeah, no, they're all happy to be there. The students from Springdale High are mostly all bilingual.
Wow, that's
Both in
awesome.
Spanish and Marshallese, so
Cool.
that gives us that extra set of
Yeah,
poll workers at the polling place that can assist unlimited number of individuals. And we actually went through that process of the translating, like if you're asked the questions, this is what the question was. So they could start thinking about what is a common term for nonpartisan or, like those different kinds of
Yeah.
things. Yeah.
Well, you also need to give each one of them a certificate to be a worker when they get out of high school
yeah, that's a
or
good
college
idea.
or,
Yeah.
or,
That's a good idea.
encourage them to not just give it up at
Yeah.
that point, but to become workers every election if
Yeah.
they can,
And
or
we-
as many as possible.
Definitely.
Handful of them, but this year I did do individual certificates for them.
Cool.
Because of the Learns Act,
Oh,
that
yeah.
these can go
Like ads
towards their hours, so I did individual
Super.
certificates for them, and when they work election day, I'll have individual certificates that come back. I'll sign and then scan and then send the originals to the school districts,
Oh, that's good.
for the kids.
Cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
That
it was
needs
fun.
to-
We missed out on having Fayetteville High School come, but we'll
Right.
coordinate something with them.
Well,
And I will, count
That's
our own
great.
success too.
yeah, I mean,
Again, I always do, but it's because of that bill we got passed. a couple
That's
years
right,
ago that
that's
let
right.
students do this.
But,
So,
but
which
I
is
think
cool.
that maybe you can even, create a little competition between some of the schools.
Ooh.
That might be the way
Oh,
to,
maybe even
yeah.
more of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
so, I mean, I don't know how all that would work, but that, you always think about that when you're talking about high school or college kids is the competitive spirit that they, feed off of.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I could see it being helpful. The more of them we get engaged, the
Mhm.
better.
Mhm. Yeah,
Cool.
super. Well, I'm glad to hear that's going well.
Yeah. me too.
So, yeah.
You've had a couple of busy weeks, have you not?
My head is just spinning right now, but yeah, but it's always nice.
So they're recommending something. else.
Yeah.
I know.
That's what I'm here for.
But I can do it. So, yeah.
Listen, Jennifer can do anything and her crew too.
We keep testing, you know.
Yeah, we do. Lacey's looking a little bit reluctant there.
In charge while she did training, that's all.
Oh, yeah. Well, it all came out well, right?
It
Oh,
did,
it did.
they
It
did
just- We have a whole new appreciation for what did for that.
yeah, because they were in charge of making sure the poll books tested
Oh,
correctly.
yeah.
And I gave them all the materials they needed and they got all that done.
That's
So
great.
it's-
Well, they need to learn to fly, right? Okay, well, let's move on to early vote emergency closure procedure.
Okay.
And let's start with a prayer that we don't get any bad weather.
And this nice weather right now
Oh,
keeps making me think.
We're due for something else.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just put it off till March. I mean,
Yeah.
until the end of March.
Yeah, exactly.
It'll be spring break maybe.
Oh,
So we had planned all along, if the courthouse was closed, our offsite early voting sites would be closed, but the courthouse would remain open. That was kind of like for offsite early voting,
Yeah.
that was kind of what we had talked about.
Yeah, yeah.
And so that's pretty easy to go. But then, as this weather rolled through and I watched, the schools and the two libraries and then the courthouse itself, we didn't talk about delayed openings. We didn't talk about when the courthouse says that they're gonna open at 10, how does that impact us for our other offsite early voting? Now, the courthouse will always be open from 8 to 6, regardless of what anybody else does. But
Our side of the courthouse.
our side of the courthouse will always be open 8 to 6.
What if the courthouse has a delayed opening itself?
It will always be open from 8 until 6.
Doesn't
So
matter.
it
Always,
doesn't
no
matter.
matter what.
Doesn't matter
Voters
what.
can get through the door to the quorum courtroom, but no access to anything else until 10.
Right, until 10.
That's
Every-
restricted in
Yes.
some way.
Got it.
Okay.
Yeah, so that part doesn't change, but the part that I have a question for the commission. How do we treat the other sites? Do we just keep them closed for kind of like consistency of messaging? Because what if some, because the weather,
Closed just related to weather-related delays.
Yeah.
In opening the courthouse.
yes, because let's say 10 o'clock, the courthouse opens. Sites in Springdale might be okay to open at 10, but our site in Prairie Grove might still just be a mess to try and open. So do we, on those days, just go ahead and say all the sites are closed with the exception
Of the
of the
courthouse.
course?
This is,
Or what would be the option?
The option would be to try and open them at 10, all of them. Or do.
On a delay.
On a delay, so like the courthouse opens at 10, then that would mean Elmdale Baptist Church would open at 10 for early voting. But when a weather system hits us.
It hits
sometimes
differently.
It hits differently in different parts, like Westport,
Mhm.
you might not be able to get any poll workers, because especially the afternoon crew or the morning crew all come from Winslow. So, so that's kind of the question we haven't discussed.
so the courthouse is, their decision-making process for determining whether to close the courthouse or be open delayed start. Is that solely based on road conditions and conditions immediately surrounding the courthouse, or are they considering also conditions countywide?
They consider conditions countywide because they know staff is coming in from countywide. There's probably only a handful of people, maybe that are from Fayetteville and Springdale. A lot of the staff at the courthouse are from out in the county, Prairie Grove, Elkins, Winslow, all of those areas. So it's a whole decision for the county.
So I mean, if that's actually the case, it seems like potentially we could still base it on the courthouse's decision. I don't know, we should talk about it. That one day, you're talking about that one day, they had the delayed opening.
Right.
A lot of places did, and that day, my opinion, the delayed opening made a lot of sense. And the roads are fine later in the day,
Right,
but
right.
they maybe weren't in the morning.
Yeah,
So I get the value of the delayed opening.
right.
As I'm thinking about it, and I don't know that this is, I mean, because I live out in the county. And some of those roads out there are pretty awful.
Mhm.
And I don't know if it's similar. I mean, I thought this last time when it was delayed,
Mhm.
there was a lot of variation
Mhm.
in the county.
Probably was.
Yeah,
And, places that got nothing and places that, you know, had a pretty severe winter storm. Debbie's looking like she might have been one of those places that had the severe.
One of the days that they delayed the opening, I drove in and it was bad. It was really
yeah.
bad.
Later in the day,
Mhm.
or I did the late opening time.
Well, by the delay, I don't know by the delay, I think that it was just where I came in from. The road was bad, even in the afternoon when I came home through town. and
It's
stayed
not
back.
a road that receives,
A lot of
treatment
attention,
from the
yeah.
road.
Yeah.
Mhm.
No, this was.
Well, and part of that too is, I have to say, some of the roads are really getting awful from all the weather that has been on.
Mhm.
And
Yeah, that's true.
some of them are really awful.
Cause even one of those days, Fayetteville, that was the day I was texting with the teacher who brings the students. I was like, we're gonna be there Thursday, we're gonna be there Thursday, and I was texting her even late in the afternoon, in the evening. And then all of a sudden, she's like, they're not, and
Oh.
when Fayetteville School District said they were closing, it was because the neighborhoods,
Right.
the school buses, there are so many
Oh,
neighborhoods
yeah.
and so many
Oh.
hills in Fayetteville in those neighborhoods that the roads just weren't safe. And yeah, by noon, it looked like, oh yeah, everybody could have gone to school, but that's a big decision
Right.
that they make to keep their kids safe. And that's essentially kind of the
Imagine-
decisions we're making.
Driving a school bus
Yeah,
in some
on
of these
it.
back roads.
Yeah.
It's pretty awful.
I mean, the point about different areas of the county getting hit differently.
Yeah,
I mean, that's a good point, right?
Yeah.
Because you could have somewhere in southern Washington County or northern get hit and the opposite is
Mhm.
fine.
mhm.
So you don't want to close polling locations in the areas that are fine, if that's what happens. But I get,
But you need some
we have to have some
consistency.
consistency
Yeah,
and make policy now, I guess is
Right.
what you're saying,
Right.
basically.
Before early votes start,
yeah,
we need to figure out because
Well,
to
I'm
know.
sorry, we're talking about, a consistent policy would be the policy that you mentioned up front, that we would only open the
courthouse.
courthouse.
Mhm. Yeah.
But there's some consistency to having a policy that says, you know, on these bad weather days or whatever it is, you know, we will open, the courthouse site. We will open other sites as we can. And is that
I don't know. What do we have?
But then how do you let people know?
Yeah, that's a
What-
big problem.
That's the
Is
question.
it something that we would
That-
keep up with on our site?
I don't know, maybe. And think, I guess, also you're probably concerned about keeping track of poll workers and hey, who's able to make it? Are you guys able? Are you open? Are you not? And
Right.
They would
So
have to have at least 4 poll workers who could get in, but then I would have to figure out who are those 4 poll workers. We also have to post notice too. So right now, we're prepared to send out with each site. Like if, for instance, if we're watching the weather and we think that the weather's gonna be bad on Friday and we're open on Thursday. We can, before we leave on Thursday, post the notice on the door, which is one of the requirements for an emergency closure that says this site will be closed due to an emergency.
Or this site will be closed if the
If,
county courthouse is
yeah,
closed,
but
or something like that.
something that we have to post, and so we can do that. But then it becomes, well, which time do we post? That will open at 10, that will be closed all day. So it becomes.
Well, and that also, I mean, look at the weather people who can never tell, you know, they can say it's gonna be clear at a certain time and then it's not.
Yeah,
And none of our poll workers are weather people. So you can post we'll open at 10 and then at 10 o'clock it's still awful. So I tend to think we go with everything closed except for the courthouse. If it just gets, I mean,
If there's any delayed opening.
yeah,
That's the
Yeah.
question, yeah.
So basically, it does make sense to tie our decision to the courthouse.
Yeah.
decision
yeah,
In some ways.
absolutely.
So I guess the
You still-
question,
You still have one site where
Yeah.
if you're willing to brave it out.
Yeah.
You'll be able to vote.
and we're not the ones making the decision in real time.
Yeah.
We're not evaluating
Yeah.
weather conditions. The courthouse
Mhm.
is evaluating
Or
conditions.
even for
and-
that matter, road conditions.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Right, and those decisions, when the judge makes that decision, he has consulted with John Luther Emergency Planning,
Yeah.
with the road
Yeah,
department,
yeah,
with all of those other entities that we're not privy necessarily,
Yeah.
we're not out driving
Yeah, exactly.
in the areas
And I'm
where
not gonna
they
be.
are.
Yeah.
Right, so that was one thing we hadn't said, it
Yeah,
had occurred to
yeah.
me.
Delayed
That
openings.
delayed openings.
The only question.
Mhm.
So the question is just, if there's a delayed opening with the courthouse, are our sites open at the delayed start time? Are they closed all day or something else?
Yes.
Lots.
There's no real, I was gonna say, what other counties do, but really
We're
most counties in Arkansas aren't affected like this. We're the ones.
We're the leaders.
Yeah,
That's right,
exactly.
that's right.
Yeah.
Well, and a lot of them don't have as many off-site early
Right.
voting, so for
Yeah.
them, they only have the courthouse to worry about and maybe one
One or
other
two others,
side.
yeah.
Yeah.
And because we have so many sites open, that's X amount of.
And
them
spread
are
all over
workers.
the county.
Right, so, and messaging,
Yeah.
it becomes part of the messaging
Mhm.
too. Because I have talked with, the communication director, that whenever we get to the point where we're going to early vote, their delayed messaging or their messaging that they're sending to the news media will include early voting is still available at the county clerk's office. So that part of the messaging, I've been working with the
Yeah.
communication director, make sure it's posted, not just on my side is fine, but on the front of the
Right,
county's
that's a good
website.
point, yeah.
When you're watching any of the news channels and you're seeing all the closures, it will come
Mm.
through and it will say early voting still available at the forum courtroom or at the county,
Yeah.
at the courthouse. So,
And hopefully that'll eliminate a lot of the calls. Are you open today?
right.
Or whatever.
I think having it on the news media,
Yeah.
that one is the best one,
Yeah.
because everybody's watching that scroll through to see what it says.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so I have worked with, I've asked Tad about that, about getting that messaging through.
So if the courthouse is determined that they will be on a delayed opening, and all that's been checked out pretty thoroughly through all the processes that you were talking about. Are there any other poll places that are inside city limits or whatever that might reasonably be considered and thought of as being able to be open
Central.
on a delayed basis?
So I would think that Elmdale possibly, like, we could target it and we could say that in Springdale, we would offer Elmdale as a location to be open. In Fayetteville, we could, if we were only open at the courthouse, we could target it and say that, the site on Weddington would be open, because that one's on a main, on a main
Yeah.
road.
If traffic's moving, that's gonna be a place where it will move.
Right, and we have keys to both of those sites. So we're not relying on anyone else to let us in. Medical Arts is the other Fayetteville one, and then Tawny Town. I mean, I know Tawny Town is not in the city of Springdale,
Yeah,
but
that's
it's-
a good sign.
it's on there. So if we wanted to make it more of a targeted delayed opening, we would open up Elmdale, Tawny Town,
You just named four.
Medical Arts, and the site on Weddington Unity.
Now, could we word that in such a way that we will plan to open those on the delayed schedule
Even if delayed.
Yeah.
if possible? You know, if-
Yeah, I think so, because we only need to get 4 poll workers.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I think it's a good idea. We could have, so basically the teasers are courthouse is closed, the only
Yeah.
sites open is the courthouse early voting.
Yeah,
Courthouse is delayed. We're gonna have the courthouse still, and then these other 4 sites.
Yeah.
And
Around
then
the county.
around the county.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's good. I think that makes sense, because those are big
In the
sites
most
and they're on,
Traveled, and those would be.
the
the
road
streets
departments are gonna
that
be
would
hitting
be
those,
clear.
right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I mean, I think that makes sense.
we'll have the best chance of getting the most people
Yeah,
to be able to cast their ballot.
yeah,
or
I
even
agree.
just to
That
get
makes
there.
sense.
Even, I
Exactly,
mean,
to
in
be able to
terms
get
of,
there.
of the, personnel that come in there.
So we would not open, which the ones that would have the most problems getting open would be Prairie Grove, Westport.
Sure, it seems
And-
like the more
and
rural
Elkins.
areas.
And then our sites that are only open for a limited amount of time anyway,
Yeah.
though, they're not part of our 2-week. So it would make sense to go in and do those 4 with a delayed opening for the courthouse. These would also be open
Yeah.
at 10 or whatever time the
Whatever
courthouse
time the courthouse.
Yeah, good
determines
point.
to be
Yeah.
open.
Have they ever done anything different than 10?
I don't know that I've seen anything different than 10, maybe noon.
That's what I was wondering.
But 10 o'clock is pretty normal because by then the
Things
weather
clear
has
out.
warmed up a little bit and traffic has been moving.
Right.
I mean, I don't mind that we would follow their lead and say, open at 10. But if we could, make those 4 open at 12.
That's true too. I mean, they would be open from 12 until 6.
I feel like let's tie it to the
Yeah,
courthouse.
same here.
Because who knows when they do the delayed opening, but I think that makes sense. I think that's a good way to think through it and do it. Yeah,
Can we have a,
You okay with that?
Yeah, no, like I said, I was not comfortable trying to make this decision on my own, and I certainly didn't want to wait till it started snowing. And then we're making a policy on
You're
the
scrambling.
fly.
Yeah.
And that's never a good, it's never a good policy or to do that. So, yeah.
and the state board is gonna look at us askance if we do something that, hasn't,
I can't stand that scant look.
I
on the
know,
state.
I know. They put us under pretty big scrutiny because
know.
we do a lot of things.
Yeah,
But they sure do want our help. with
I
that
know,
question.
I don't want us to get in any trouble with that. We'll keep them on our good side.
and then the opposite side of this would be if the courthouse closes early,
Yeah,
then our sites would close early as well, except the courthouse would stay
itself.
open until 6, but all the other
Everything.
sites
Yep,
would close early if the courthouse
I think
decides to close
so,
early.
yes.
is that gonna be
Yeah.
too confusing?
I think though, no, because I think people they either look at, if they're gonna decide to do something, it's either tied to what is the school?
Usually,
Oh, yeah,
that's what I
yeah.
always think.
What is
of.
the
Yeah.
school doing?
Yeah.
What is maybe the courthouse doing or the city doing?
Do-
Because like, if the city is closed, then
Yeah.
you shouldn't
Yeah.
be out.
Yeah.
probably.
Do the schools pay enough close attention to what's going on at the courthouse to have some consistency between, or at least some,
Yeah,
Yeah.
good question. I
Yeah.
have no idea. Good
They,
question.
they
But-
don't, because they have to worry more about inside the neighborhood
Yeah.
and the school
Yeah.
buses.
yeah,
Got it.
And that's what causes them to sometimes be closed when everyone else is like. "Hey,
why did you do
closed."
this? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
The school buses.
okay,
Sometimes their buses have to go in places that don't.
yeah.
Any
Yeah.
attention.
Yeah, I believe it.
And those, every time I see a school bus on one of those country roads, I'm like, I would not want to drive one of these, because they're just not
Yeah.
real easy to navigate. Well, should we have a motion on this, just to be on the safe side?
Sure, I'll make a motion to
Do what we already said.
establish our policy, for opening and closing polling locations as discussed.
Okay. So basically, the courthouse still has a delayed opening. We will follow and only open Elmdale, Tawnytown, Medical Arts, and Unity on Weddington.
Correct.
And if they close early, we will close all sites early, with the exception of the courthouse, which remains open from 8 until 6 regardless of any closures.
Correct.
Okay,
Okay.
super.
Do that.
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right.
Let's just hope that we did all this for nothing.
I hope so too, but I certainly didn't
I
want
know.
to try and do this
No,
as, without having a meeting and
Yeah.
without having time to think about it.
right,
Don't do it by phone, do it.
No, no, by Zoom or, because then there's too many people for me to coordinate with, because I've already talked to Tad about coordinating wording and what we need. So yeah, so this makes his job easier too for this.
yeah, I appreciate you thinking this through ahead of time. Okay, so we have nailed down our closure policy for emergencies. Other business.
I have,
Nothing.
Okay, I do. We talked about, before you got here, Max, I didn't even think of this as a matter of business particularly, but the more we talked about it, the more we realized that it is business, and it has to do with sending out, the minutes that we get, and my first question was, since they come to us as Word documents,
Yeah,
there is the real possibility, and they're only being sent to us, but there is the possibility that you could change them because a Word file is easily editable. So my thought was that we could send them out as PDFs. People aren't as likely to edit a PDF, but that may, since these are just drafts, we thought they probably could just be labeled as drafts. But then we also thought maybe what we ought to do is have a place, once we've accepted the minutes at our meetings, that we have a signature in order to indicate that this is the official minutes that has not had the opportunity to be changed in some way that, I mean, we've got to think about security this year.
but we send a copy to, the clerk, is that right?
I take a copy.
Take a copy.
So like today,
is it filed with the clerk?
it is.
So that's the
required.
official copy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Filed.
Yes,
Yeah, but we thought that maybe we ought to have that, actually have a statement
from this side.
that we, it was,
Approved, yeah.
accepted by this, commission.
That's fine, yeah.
And that she signed it.
I think that's a
Yeah.
fine idea. I'm good with that. On the Word versus PDF, I mean, I don't care either.
I think-
Either way,
Yeah.
it's easy to change it from a PDF to a Word document.
It
So like
is.
if it's a,
Yes.
I guess my thought is whatever's easier. I don't care. Labeling it draft, I don't think that's a bad idea. I'm good with whatever those you guys want to do.
Okay, well, I think our final discussion indicated that if we give you a statement on, that is printed on this, that says the minutes were accepted by the commission, and Jennifer is the witness that was, and she signs it as, I officially certify that the minutes were approved or accepted by the commission, and this is my signature thereof.
That's fine.
And then the official copy has been recorded.
Yeah,
Wow.
it goes to Becky's office. I know that seems a little cumbersome, but you'll figure out the wording.
Yeah, I'll actually go back and look when ordinances are filed, whatever that,
Oh, yeah.
whatever that language is,
Yeah.
that
Yeah,
they
Go ahead.
sign, I'll just mock that up.
And
Why don't you just, next meeting, when we have a meeting, the minutes for this one to look at,
Right.
let's look at that then,
Okay.
see what's done.
Okay,
That'd be good.
Yeah, that sounds good.
And,
Yeah.
and the main thing was that we just need to, start thinking and awareness of greater security in every, did we have another thing that we were talking about that we
yes,
thought would,
well, that was April the 16th.
oh, yeah.
The Secretary of State's office has asked us to host a regional meeting where they're bringing people in to talk about cybersecurity for elections. And I think they're wanting to do a broader scope of it because they talked about the sheriff's office, they talked about county judge's office, and so,
So
yeah.
a joint meeting,
I think so. We didn't have a ton of details other than would that
a joint meeting.
would that space be available over at the sheriff's annex?
Okay,
So,
so
yeah.
have you already checked on
And
that?
I have it reserved for us.
Is that gonna be all day?
I don't have any other details. I would suspect that it
It
probably
might
will be at least from 9 to 2 or
Yeah,
10
yeah.
to 3 or something
Okay.
like that.
So
16th, that's
we'll hear
Tuesday.
more about that.
Yes, I will let you know when I know any more about that, but you can mark that on your
Is
calendar.
that something we need to plan on being attending?
Yes,
All of us?
and I've
As the
already,
hosts.
I've let the judge's office know and the sheriff's office know emergency planning.
Oh,
If they are included, that way they can,
Yeah.
have it on their calendars, to attend
okay,
as well.
super.
Sounds good.
Okay, any other business? We've got, February 7th is the public test. And our next actual meeting is not until election day.
Yeah.
Hoping that we don't have an
Yeah.
emergency along the way.
I think there's no emergency.
Yeah, okay.
We did do at training, we have been working with the sheriff's office, once again, to make sure that they know where all of our polling locations are on election day, because that question has been asked,
Mhm.
about that. And Sergeant Stewart came in and talked to the poll workers about just situational awareness and recognizing when someone gets agitated, what steps you can do, and just, talked about 15 or so minutes. To all of the class.
I hope
to
that
the-
didn't-
No, I didn't do the brand new people. I wanted to ease them in, so all of my experience forward
Yeah.
the first 3 days.
Oh, good.
Sergeant Stewart came and talked to them at each of the classes.
Nobody was intimidated enough that they go, I'm
No,
not doing this.
No.
Oh,
In
good.
fact, I think they felt better knowing that the sheriff's office was, assisting them
Yeah,
in that type of thing, so.
okay, super. We just need to be much more aware.
Yeah.
And situational for sure. Okay, no other business?
Nothing.
Yeah,
Oh,
okay, meeting is adjourned. Okay, got that.